Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Jared. Jared, welcome to the show.
What's going on, Ben? Nice to be here.
Jared, I'm excited. This is an episode I've been looking forward to for a long time. We went to lunch like a month ago, and ever since that lunch, I was like, okay, this is a story that needs to be told. So thank you for taking the time. But before we dive into your story, let's get to know your background and history a little bit, and then we'll kind of dive into everything that you're doing.
Nice. Yep. My background is in e-commerce operations and supply chain management. So I dropped out of college and immediately started a storefront, but that Etsy and Amazon. And I sold barn door hardware. So my unfinished basement, dropped out of college to be building baby gates and like hand bending barn door hardware and just figure it out. That was my personality. I could not fit down a career path. So I was just like, I'd rather just figure this out and see where it takes me. So where that took me was down a path of e-commerce operations and more around supply chain. So like what it turned into, instead of me procuring my own stuff in my basement, like making my own baby gates and selling them, I got more and more up market, like, sourcing from factories in China and then sourcing from bigger factories and then negotiating contracts and working with bigger and bigger brands. Eventually, like where it all culminated was I became CEO at 28 of a local omni-channel e-commerce company. They were called Qualtree. So yeah, they did about 15 million a year in revenue, and I found myself as CEO, and that's where I sort of ran into the problem that I started building around my SaaS company, my software company.
I love it. I love it. And so where are you at now? What did you build? What is that going to solve?
Yeah. So again, that background in e-commerce operations and supply chain, what it really showed me was there's a massive gap in the market. Like e-commerce has evolved so much in the 2000s, and it's sort of been hand in hand with the internet. And what all that means is like commerce has evolved so much and so fast. So what that's led to is it used to be like there's big retail brands like that go in Macy's and Nordstrom, and then there used to be D2C brands, and there was nothing in the middle. Now, modern commerce, it's a mix of both. So the operations of modern commerce, if you want to do business and sell products, like it's so different. So what that's led to is a gap in the market, a gap between ancient ERPs like NetSuite and then like newer tech, but it's not as broad as NetSuite and it can't solve all of your problems. So Luminous fits in the middle. We are a purpose-built operating system for modern commerce.
I love that. That's super cool. And I have seen some of these industries before. And if you look at the old interfaces and the way people were doing things, it's just so painful. It's like I saw this on my computer in the 80s. The interface has never changed. It's brutal. So I think it's a really cool space and a really cool story. So you had the background. You learn firsthand exactly what it takes and all of the issues around the operational side of things in commerce, decided to build this SaaS business. You guys are growing and thriving. And one of the best ways you figured out how to grow this business is through content and storytelling. How did you first start out on that side? And what made you think, okay, I'm going to kind of buck some of the trends of SaaS growth and really focus on content and storytelling to grow my business?
Oh, 100%. Content and storytelling is the differentiator for Luminous. 100%, without a doubt. People always ask, so we went to market. So I built a beta product. It took me like 3 years. It's such a big system to build. So I didn't even have to worry about go to market and selling to people until like end of 2023. So basically all of 2024 was my go to market. And our go to market was very successful. We went from about 350K in ARR, 10 paying customers to 100 paying customers and over 1.5 million in ARR. So we had really good growth. I attribute almost all of that to content and storytelling. What led us to the content storytelling, in 2023, as I was prepping the go-to-market, like, okay, how do we sell Luminous? How do we get in front of people? How do we distribute it? Everybody around me was just telling me like, okay, well, first you got to get an SDR and you got to do 5 email domains and you got to send 1,000 emails. And like, I tried that and it like kind of worked, but just like a couple months into that, I was like, it felt like I was destroying my brand, what little brand I had. It was super ineffective. Honestly, like in 2023, people weren't responding to those sequences anymore. I just decided almost on a whim to like, I'm doing this content thing. And it was from seeing people around like in the area and also just like Gary V. Alex Ramosi, like, like the normal ones. But what I was seeing was this trend for content-led approach, or like people call it your personal brand, and like tying that to the brand of your business. And so I decided to do it. So the first thing I did was I picked up my phone and I told my story. I was like, when I was CEO of my e-commerce company, if I would have implemented NetSuite, it would have killed my business. And I just explained why implementing NetSuite is a bad idea. Really bad video, not great. It was literally like my selfie camera, but it got like 500 views of the right people. And I just started to, so I did that for like a year. I just picked up my phone, recorded stuff, educational content, started a podcast where I just interviewed operators. And then my whole brand, like the brand of Luminous, was built around the story and like why we existed. And it's everything: day in the life content, Ops Unfiltered, my podcast, sales embedded content on educating the prospect. And honestly, I would say, and also culminating with a really nice top of funnel that tells our story in a way that you can advertise and you can promote. All of those things together, that was what made us grow. And that's what the biggest thing I noticed in this content-led approach was. I would go to events in the past. Like I'd go to local events. People kind of knew I was like, oh, like you do like Luminous, right? After a year of doing content, going to those same events, night and day. Everybody knew who I was. They knew, like, oh, you're the NetSuite guy. Like you're the guy who hates NetSuite. And they just knew what I did and they knew the value at. It's been game changing.
That's so cool. So what channels did you originally start distributing on? So you talked about, you pull out the camera, you're doing the selfie camera, and I love that. How did you start to distribute and actually get eyeballs on the content in the first place?
Well, first was YouTube. I just set up my own channel. We tried a little bit on TikTok. Actually, for a while I tried on TikTok, and I had some good viewed videos on TikTok. Then I did on top of those channels, I started a podcast. We use one of like those one-to-many platforms where it posted everywhere. Mm-hmm. I can't remember who we use. We use Riverside for the remote recordings. We use our own studio and cameras to record. But yeah, it's mainly YouTube, TikTok, our own website. And like I say, like our biggest distribution channel is in our sales process and on our website. That's where people view the content most.
I love that last response too. Like your biggest distribution channel, at least one of them is your sales team. And I love that because I think a lot of times as marketers and business leaders, we're like, okay, well, my content's got to go viral and I got to put $1 million behind it, all that kind of fun stuff. But really, a lot of the content is really most effective if you're just equipping your employees with the right content that they need for the people they're working with. And you have this policy, you told me at lunch, anytime you got a question, rather than answering it, you would shoot a video. Is that right? How did that work?
100%. And I often say, people ask, oh, what are your top converting videos? It's like, people normally think, oh, it's the top of funnel. Well, sure, it converts people from a lead to like booking a demo. But actually the highest converting videos are those ones at the very bottom of the funnel where what is lot tracking, like something super technical. So yeah, those are best performing videos, I say, because those are the ones that convert people at the very bottom of the funnel. I don't have to train my sales reps on super technical things. They can just send a video on the questions that they've asked, and that's what leads them to convert.
That's super cool. And for anyone listening, like go check out Jared's website. joinluminous.com. What I love is if you go to the footer, and believe me, I've spent like an hour on your site. This site's amazing. So you go to the footer and it's, NetSuite, Luminous versus NetSuite or whatever. Mm-hmm. How did you script those videos? Because I know so many companies that are afraid to do that video, and B, they do a really poor job of it. How did you do that? I mean, obviously you've built a little bit of a brand saying, I'm kind of the anti NetSuite guy, but like, how do you build those pieces of content and how have those performed for you?
Yeah, great question. I have a funny story. So I just have a lot of industry experience. So I've ran into all these different systems. So I generally know the difference between like us and NetSuite and us and Extensive. So I just did like a whole podcast with me and my CTO and I think our head of implementation, where we just talk shop about those systems, and then we cut it up in a certain way, and then we distribute, like the pages will have like a breakdown that we're trying to pitch. But what's funny, one for Extensive, the Extensive CEO reached out to me threatening like legal action. See, I love shit like this. I always say my goal one day is to piss off NetSuite so much that we get a cease and desist. I've already gotten like a threat from Extensive, like he's saying that he's going to send a legal letter, and I'm just like, look, I already double checked this. We're well within our rights here. Sue us.
I love that. And I think that there's kind of like that value behind the brazen nature to say, hey, I'm willing to say as long as I'm good to go, I'm willing to say it. On your homepage, you've got this hero video, right? And first of all, it's pure gold. Like I love this video. But second of all, I imagine it wasn't cheap. How long did it take before you feel like you were able to build and create that video? Like, I'm guessing this video wasn't how you drove to a huge amount of views. This was kind of after the fact. How long did you go before you had to kind of invest in outside money to build some of these, I don't know if AAA is the right way of saying it, but like Hollywood style commercial kind of quality content?
So we built the content funnel from, I'd want to say the bottom up, but it's kind of true. Like I filmed content by myself and started a podcast. I was doing that for a year before we even paid. Yeah, in fact, I did a full year of content before, just like organic podcast, educational YouTube stuff, before I even paid for a top of funnel. And I was proving out the concept, and all of my learnings I was putting into the website. Like we were changing our positioning, we were changing our wording, and we were pitching ourselves. And it was a very iterative process where we proved out that, okay, we know in the small sample size in Utah, we're converting so much better. People like us more. All I knew was like, okay, either I hire a bunch of SDRs to generate this, or I'm confident that if I have a well-written, well-acted top of funnel that I can put money behind, it's going to do the same thing. We ended up being right on that. So instead of hiring a bunch of SDRs to drive more awareness top of funnel, we paid for a top of funnel, and it was a risk, but it was a calculated risk. I thought we had already proved that this content-led approach worked, and it ended up working.
I love that. So what was kind of the tipping point? You said you were kind of iterating and you kind of had proved this out. Was there any like specific moment where you're like, okay, this content thing's working. Like, let's go all in, let's invest in it. Let's put some advertising dollars behind it. Let's have it be the motion. Was there any aha moment, or was it kind of just a gradual, like over time, you're like, yeah, I think we should do it?
I think there was an aha moment, actually. It was when I went, so there's this conference I go to in Utah every year. And I've gone every year, and the aha moment was the year that we did content for like 8 months leading up to it. Totally different. We closed so many deals from that conference, and everybody knew who we were. There was like a sense of respect, or like people felt like they knew me. That was the moment, because that was all I needed to see. Is like, I saw the Utah environment and that conference as like, okay, this is just a small sample size of what we could do that was bigger. So after that, I'd already been looking around for agencies to do it, to do our top of funnel. After I felt that difference, and we closed so many deals from that conference, it was like, I'm ready. Yeah, and we did it. We paid for it, and like, we're going all in.
I love that. That's awesome. All right. So we're getting towards the end. We're almost out of time. We keep these episodes short. But Jared, let's talk to all the marketers out there that listen to the podcast. And they may not be the founder. They may not have that same background, things of that nature. What would your recommendation to them be like? They may have come from multiple industries. They may not have all the industry experience. I mean, you and I are very similar boats. I'm selling software that a lot of marketers buy. I've been in marketing my whole career, and I felt that pain. Like, that's why I started a business. You were in e-commerce, felt that pain and commerce, and you solved the pain and started a business. Let's say I'm at like a 300-400 person company, and we haven't done a good job of telling our story, but I'm tasked with doing that. If you were put into that position on the marketing team, where would you start? What would you do? And how would you start to tell that story?
So I think first, your higher ups need to be aligned with the impact of content. So I guess there's two ways I would go. First off, if your founder or CEO or the person you're reporting to, if they're in on this thing called content and they'll just write you a blank check, then awesome. Then basically just push them in front of a camera and help them tell their story, and just start out by just putting it out there, like put it out on YouTube. If they aren't, what I would say is you can actually, every company has a why. And yes, it is more powerful when it comes from the founder and the CEO. But if you don't have their support, you just do it. I actually see so many sales reps, actually the most effective sales reps and SDRs at big like Fortune 500 companies nowadays. They're really good at doing this. Like they film their own videos. They do this content in their little vacuum, their little corner. They film their own content. They do the same thing. They get in front of their selfie video and they explain the why of their company. And they start, I feel like LinkedIn is a great place to start.
I love that. It's true. I mean, I've talked to some sales reps where you're right. The company's big enough that it feels a little disconnected sometimes if they're like, well, here's the company's story and mission. But a lot of times they're like, here's the deal. I was in this company and I was a customer of this software. I loved it so much that I ended up, asking them if I could work for them. And here's all the good things it did for me. And all of a sudden it's their why. And all of a sudden they have a
Exactly.
story to tell, which is super cool.
That's really good.
I love that. All right, Jared, thank you so much for all of the insights and for telling your story. Second of all, thank you for actually being a great example of what marketing should look like. None of us need a whole bunch of emails and all that kind of stuff. We love storytelling and content. So thank you for doing that. If
Can I
anyone wants to reach out, yeah, jump in.
can I just say I feel like because there's so many question marks around like, well, what is AI going to do? I don't know if this is I don't know if I'm how do you say it? If I'm I don't know if this is a controversial statement, but I actually think content like what we're doing is going to be even more relevant with how AI has emerged because everybody is going to they're going to want authentic, they're going to want real. And I feel like human to human content, like somebody hopping in front of a camera who's very knowledgeable. I think that's only going to the stock of like founder content or marketing content is only going to go up.
Oh, I agree. No, I'm a big proponent of this exact same concept. I think you're spot on. AI doesn't have a story, AI doesn't have a perspective, and AI doesn't have the background in that situation. And AI is going to be amazing at helping us tell our story better. But if you're having AI tell the story, it's not a good thing. You have to have a story to tell, and AI can help you do it better. That's kind of my personal perspective.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that call out. It's true. Like content's going to be a bigger deal moving forward. I think some people are nervous about it, but it's in a, I mean, you look at it like there's paintings on the walls of caves from thousands of years ago of buffalo, like the giant buffalo that someone in the tribe killed, right? Like someone had to tell that story and that's how they thought and reacted and lived. Like that's not going away. If anything, it's going to be even more important in the future.
Agreed.
I love it. Okay, Jared, if anyone wants to reach out and connect with you online and hear about your story and learn about you or any of that kind of stuff, how and where can they find you?
So first off, Ops and Filter podcast. That's I interview operators in the e-commerce space. And then also Jared Ward at LinkedIn. So Jared Ward.
Love it. Perfect. And we will link to everything inside the show notes. Jared, again, thank you so much for the time and insights and sharing your story today.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.